a relentless targeting of journalists and systematic targeting of journalists, which basically means that journalists are being targeted deliberately, that this military is trying to kill Palestinian journalists in addition to just bombing indiscriminately everywhere. The way the journalists and their families are being targeted in the Gaza Strip.
Now, since today, after you reached out to me, we lost another colleague, unfortunately, and we're sad and we're shocked and we are angry. Those are dear colleagues. They are doing their work, wearing their vests, their safety gears, as Mustafa and Hamza were yesterday, in their car, full of TV stickers, full of equipment, though they were targeted. We have 107 journalists killed in Gaza. This means 9% of journalists killed in Gaza in only 90 days. The West usually educate us, between brackets, about human rights and about freedom and about justice. We did not really see them do anything. They were silent. They did a little bit, some of our colleagues, but they did it with fear. They did it with lots of fights with their editors in so many newspapers, in mainstream channels, and I don't want to recall names, but they know themselves.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to New Wave Global. I'm Rabia Mehmood. Today we're in front of you again with the continuation of our coverage of the Palestine story. Basically, the bombing of Gaza by the Israeli military, which started after October 7th. We are, as you know, we've been covering Palestine for a while and the plight of Palestinians across the land. In the West Bank, in Jerusalem, in Gaza previously as well, and targeting of people and human rights violations. But what we've seen since October 7th, it's not something that we are saying, but the world is saying, the international community is saying, human rights organizations are saying that whatever's going on in what's unraveling in Gaza is unprecedented, it's unparalleled. And in addition to the thousands who've been killed, including children and professionals and humanitarian workers who are not supposed to be targets, we are also seeing a relentless targeting of journalists and systematic targeting of journalists, which basically means that journalists are being targeted deliberately, that this military is trying to kill Palestinian journalists in addition to just bombing indiscriminately everywhere. Where we haven't said it, Community to Protect Journalists has just put out a statement and said that what we're seeing in the way the journalists and their families are being targeted in the Gaza Strip is unparalleled, and the Israeli military has killed more journalists in under 3 months in Gaza or in Palestine than any other entity or government in a year. And of course, we've seen multiple wars as journalists ourselves over the past 2 decades, and we haven't seen this kind of brutalization of people and of a particular community. So the number of journalists who've been killed in Palestine has crossed 100. The CPJ is saying that the number is 79 or 77. Reporters Sans Frontier has their own number, but we're going with the tally of the Palestinian journalists' bodies and what they're telling us. Yes, on Sunday, we've seen another brutal targeting in an airstrike to journalists who were on the road in the south of Gaza, which was supposed to be the safe zone. They were on the road, they were in the middle of reporting or news gathering, and that airstrike killed 2 journalists, which included Hamza al-Dadu. One is Mustafa Soraya. And Hamza al-Dadu is the son of Wael Dadu, the Al Jazeera bureau chief for Gaza, and his family has been targeted in a way that it has appeared to be, or it is being stated that it's deliberate. And the way like I've said, the families of the journalists are being targeted in a very deliberate manner as well. So that made the news story. Unfortunately, every journalist getting targeted is not making it to the news. We are seeing today, we are here with a special guest, Shuruq As'ad, who is the representative and spokesperson of the Palestinian Journalist Syndicate. She's a senior journalist herself and also represents the Journalist Secretariat of Palestine. Shuruq, thanks so much for joining us on such short notice and and agreeing to speak with us quickly, taking the time out to do so. We welcome to the show. And so firstly, we saw that the Palestinian Journalist Syndicate has put out a global urgent appeal for global solidarity. Can you expand on that a bit? And you have called the targeting of journalists a journeycide, if I'm not wrong. Can you also tell our viewers about what do you mean by that?
First of all, I have to say first, thank you for highlighting this important subject that really reaches out to all of our colleagues in Gaza that are working in very critical situations that I think no journalist in the world, no matter what war it was, have really worked in this critical and dangerous situation with no really ground to international law, to human rights, to their security, to their protection, them and their families as well. Of course, concerning the appeal, yes, we are working with several partners, institutions, organizations all over the world, Arab and international, that are really also worried of this high number of journalists killed. Now, since today, after you reached out to me, we lost another colleague, unfortunately, and we're sad and we're shocked and we are angry. Those are dear colleagues. They are doing their work, wearing their vests, their safety gears, as Mustafa and Hamza were yesterday, in their car full of TV stickers, full of equipment, though they were targeted. This is a genocide for us, because when you say we have 107 journalists killed in Gaza, with the population of Gaza, with only nearly 1,200 now, they are a little bit more because so many have went to the streets and started working, finished their education in journalism, and they're forced to start very early work. This means 9% of journalists killed in Gaza in only 90 days. This means we lost one or two of our colleagues each day. This is a huge number. If you put this in another population, maybe in Pakistan, maybe in the USA, this may mean 10,000, according to the numbers and the population in a very small area like Gaza Strip or like Palestine. We worked with our partners because we think this is not only our responsibility as a syndicate, it's the responsibility of all the organizations that loud them the voice of human rights, freedom of journalism, freedom of speech, freedom of right of protection. This is now, it's a big challenge for them to really speak out loud that Israel has to stop targeting journalists, has to stop killing our colleagues in Gaza. Their right to be safe, their families has to be safe. They have the right even to have food, water, internet, electricity, safe offices. Everything is destroyed around us, not around them, not just them, but all their surrounding. So we hope this appeal really will reach out to so many partners, to so many colleagues, so we can be able to make real pressure on decision makers, to pressure on Israeli army occupation to stop killing and targeting our colleagues.
Thank you, Shuruq. You have appealed to the global journalist community for, solidarity. In your statement, you've written that there should be an end to misinformation. Journalists need to do more to end the misinformation while reporting on this conflict. So, yours is saying misinformation, and it appears to be that there's also the international journalist bodies, quote unquote, in the West, if I can call it that, they are being criticized for their underreporting of the story, for the kind of reporting which has been very lopsided. This is what the public reaction has been. And then at the same time, they are being criticized for not having done enough. And we're not saying this, multiple journalists themselves in those countries are raising this. And can you please speak about that a bit?
This is very important to highlight. Thank you for really highlighting this issue, because this is something that was shocking to me personally as a journalist. especially that usually the West usually educate us between brackets about human rights and about freedom and about justice. We did not really see them do anything. They were silent. They did a little bit, we have to be frank, some of our colleagues, but they did it with fear. They did it with lots of fights with their editors in so many newspapers, in mainstream channels, and I don't want to recall names, but they know themselves. Some, at the beginning of the war, first of all, they bought all the story of the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. They did not really take in consideration the basic law of journalism, that we have to be sure and detect all the information that we send from so many sources. They were kind of spokespeople for the Israeli soldier. They said that Palestinians burned bodies and raped women and cut heads, and this turned out to be not true and a lie, and some even went on air and they apologized. But for me, this is very dangerous, because an information can be very, very dangerous as a bullet when you mislead the people and when you send not any correct information. And I don't say here that the media should be with the Palestinian rights, though we have a legal rights, a right to be free in our country. Even though I ask for professional journalism, the basic professional journalism, like to have the two-side stories, to make sure of the information. They even bought the idea till now. Some channels, they like, let's say there's a story, there will be 2 minutes of Israeli side and 30 minutes for what's happening in Gaza. Though we talk about nearly 30,000 people died in Gaza. 10,000 of them are children. 6,000 are women. 270,000 buildings were bombed. Hospitals, schools. It's something that no really ethical journalist can really not see all this. And at the end, as if always the Palestinians have to defend themselves, like if they are human beings and not animals, as so many said, that they are not criminals, they are not terrorists, and they are not ISIS. So, and they did not even refer to the whole story, the ground of the story, why this all started, which is occupation. So there was really misleading information, and this was really sad for me, because I told you they made it as if the West, the white civilized West, with the Arab different color uncivilized people. And this is not acceptable anymore, because we really did not see them stand for this. If this happened in the US, if this happened in Ukraine, if this happened in Paris, if this happened in Israel itself, we won't really see what is happening. So I think this is a very important subject, and all the media institutions or journalists who did so, in my opinion, and I say this because I really see the responsibility for me as a journalist, they are partners in the misleading, and they are partners in the genocide that is happening to either journalists or even to children and women and neighborhoods in Gaza.
Thank you, Shuruq, for your insightful comment on how the press has been responding or not responded to this story. And you are right in saying that a piece of information which is incorrect or hidden can be like a bullet. That was a powerful comment. I also want to now speak a bit about what's happening to journalists, and if you can tell us a bit about that, because we don't really see much of that being focused on to the journalists who are not in Gaza, Palestinian journalists who are in the West Bank. Everyone saw what happened to Shirin Abu Akleh, long before October 7th. She was targeted while reporting on Jenin. So if you can tell us about how, in the midst of all of what's going on, how the journalists in the West Bank or in Jerusalem being targeted, or how are they carrying on with their work?
I have to say that our colleague and my really best friend, Shireen, was not the only really journalist actually targeted. We have more others, but we could do a legal file with Shireen because things were very clear, and we had a video, not only testimonies, so she could represent what happened with so many others in Palestine as journalists, because this is not new what's happening in Gaza. It's just more brutal, but it's been going on as a systematic strategy for Israel as a system, as a whole system, since the occupation. I've been a journalist since 30 years. I'm from Jerusalem, and I travel all over the West Bank. And I think, and I'm sure that each one of our colleagues really has a personal story, even more than one, of attacks, either by soldiers or by settlers. Since the 7th of October, there was total closure in the West Bank. Like, we have nearly 500 military checkpoints beside the wall, the cement wall. They were all closed. So moving around the Palestinian cities was impossible. And anyways, our colleagues in the West Bank cannot reach either Gaza or Jerusalem. This is also another thing. So there was, first of all, the siege. Second, the treatment of soldiers for Palestinian journalists when they reached the checkpoints. We reported 360 attacks and mistreatment for journalist crews on the checkpoints since the 7th of October, and this is a lot. Second, whenever we go to cover, like we have weekly demonstrations, and you know, there's usually the prayer in Al-Aqsa each Friday, and Israel forbid Palestinians to reach, and even they attack journalists. We've been attacked every Friday, and they come to us, yani special forces, police, army. We have names by our colleagues who were really badly beaten. We have names of our colleagues who were shot directly by snipers while only gathering on a hill, or even to be gathered, being gathered in a demonstration. We are together usually with our crew, TV kit, everything, and away from demonstrators. And though they target us by tear gas, by bullets, we have nearly 54 colleagues arrested since the 7th of October in West Bank. They invaded their homes, they treat them very badly, insulted them, and we don't know anything about them. And there's they did not even say why they took them, but it was frank that because what they wrote and delivered about Gaza story. We have demolishing equipment. We have more than 60 attacks on journalists from Israeli military settlements. Those are armed settlers. They move around the West Bank, and they can anytime shoot you or hit you or insult you. And usually the Israeli soldiers do not stand with Palestinians, either journalists or other. I reported myself only nearly 10 journalists who were threatened by soldiers and forces, either while trying to, only 2 days ago, we have attacks on Al Jazeera and Al Arabi channel and Al Ghad channel near the border of Gaza in Asqalan. They attacked them. And in Jerusalem also, they threatened so many colleagues to even hit them or shoot them if they see them again. So it's a very terrifying situation in the West Bank. It's escalating, and it's not the same as Gaza, but I tell you, even in Jenin, our colleagues, they even got shot several times. The soldiers shot on the hotel they are in, and it's known that it's only place for journalists. It's the same as Israel bombed nearly 73 offices, media offices in Gaza. So this is also a very hard situation in the West Bank. And there's nearly 150 journalists who really got even beaten or arrested or shot at in a very short time.
Are there any journalists in the West Bank at the moment who are in detention, administrative detention, or imprisoned or behind bars in any way, or who have cases
Yes.
against them?
We have nearly 34 still in prison.
Wow. These are
Uh,
horrifying statistics. I mean, of course, you're right that with Shireen's story, it was so glaring and in the public eye, so it became an emblematic case. But the statistics that that you're sharing with us and the picture that you're painting of the treatment of journalists in the West Bank is quite horrifying. And of course, none of that makes it to news media. It's only documented in human rights reports, which are put out by the end of the year or in quarterly sort of reports. And no one is going to read these reports. It's just that now we're all talking about this. As journalists from Pakistan, we extend our solidarity to you. I just will let you go. You have another interview. Thanks for speaking with us. But can you share one last message? Because as a syndicate, you've been putting out statements to the global journalist bodies. What is your last message? And then we'll say goodbye.
I want to thank you first, because you wouldn't imagine how important it is to deliver what's going on with our colleagues and with us on ground, especially Gaza and also West Bank. So it's highly appreciated, and it gives us hope that really we are a community of journalists all over the world, and our target and our vision is clear to what means of freedom of journalism or human rights. So I thank you for this. And my message is stop. Israel has to stop killing journalists, and journalists have the right to deliver the story. And they are living very hard circumstances, and this has to be stopped, and they have to be protected. And I really call for international community to have a say in this, and to really think that this journalist can be a friend or a son or a daughter or a colleague, and think really the situation they are working in. We do not really ask for something big. We call for their rights. We call for their rights. Killing really has to stop. And another thing, I wish we will be able and we will succeed, though I know the political pressure on ICC court, but we are working on files files to go to the court, to the international court, ICC, because really Israel, whether it was he was a soldier who bombed a place or a family or a journalist, or shot at a journalist, or even took the decision, has to be punished. This is what I think. I hope one day there will be justice in the international courts, and we will able to do this.
Thank you, Shuruq. Thanks for your message, and good luck to you and your colleagues with their work. It's unfortunate that the Palestinian journalists, their press cards, their press vests, and their helmets, so-called protective gear, actually does not give them any protection from being targeted, but puts a target on their back. And that's horrifying that it's unfolding in front of us live on our phones. And we're seeing this and we're unable to stop it as an international community, as international journalist bodies. We haven't really been able to protect our colleagues in any way or raise more voice for them. Thanks for joining us. And thanks to our viewers for watching our show. Khuda Hafiz.